Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net. ChristopherMedia.net.
From Asthma Core Studios near Detroit, Michigan, it's Unregimented.
Gangsters, what's up, guys?
And now, here are your hosts.
Welcome back to Unregimented, number 307. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Rich.
And it's just the two of us today with a full plate of politics.
We're flying solo together through the three-ring circus that has been American politics for the last 3 days.
Yeah, and, you know, through most of the impeachment, I paid attention to the impeachment process, but I was not focused on it because obviously we knew what the outcome was going to be. And so I didn't want to watch it and get my hopes up that some of this might be seeping in to the Republicans and some of them might actually vote their conscience instead of their party. It turns out only one of them did. But the post-acquittal news has been so addictive. I have to admit. I have been lapping this stuff up. But we haven't talked since they had the closing arguments and the vote on whether to convict or not. Did you watch any of the closing arguments or pay attention to any of the impeachment stuff as it was happening?
I heard a little bit of it, the closing arguments. Like I said, I'm right now. I'm for the time being. I'm getting a free trial for satellite radio, and I have my news station set to the Patriot, which is the conservative station, the progressive station, and then there's one called POTUS USA, which is supposed to be like as nonpartisan as possible. And so that way I can get different takes on the stuff. And
wait, why is it called POTUS, like president?
Because I guess that's what it focuses on.
Oh,
the executive branch, politics, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, how are you finding the coverage, both left and right? Then
it'd be
as
like
expected,
it'd be like going to a blog for a fan of a sports team, you know.
Yeah.
And it's literally the progressive one is, you know, we got Trump. It doesn't matter if he gets acquitted. That doesn't mean he's not guilty. The people know this. Look at his poll numbers.
Right.
The more conservative side says they got him. They got Romney to vote against him. Romney's always been a traitor. He's always been suspect. And look at his poll numbers. They're the highest they've been since the day he was inaugurated. Both sides declared victory.
Yeah, well, it's true. I mean, not only his numbers, but the Republican Senate's numbers are over 50%, which is really, really rare. I mean, people showing approval for the Senate, regardless of what they're doing or who's in it. The general public is assuming that they're a bunch of do-nothings, and they very rarely get high approval numbers. But I brought up the closing argument specifically because there was the most outlandish thing, the thing that even my kids were in the car when I heard this news, and they were like, "Why is Daddy yelling at the radio?"
Only Daddy talks like that, kids.
Alan Dershowitz said the most outrageous thing in his closing argument. Did you hear what his logic for acquittal was?
Yeah, but go ahead and repeat it, because I when I heard it, I was like, "There's no way I heard that right." There's no way.
It's not illegal for the president to try and rig an election if he believes that he's doing it in the interest of the country, and if he therefore thinks that if the president thinks that him being in office is the best thing for the country, then apparently he can do whatever he wants, act without impunity or fear of any type of consequences, because he's acting in the interest of the nation. So Alan Dershowitz said that all of Trump's interests are all of America's interests. There is no difference between them at all. And it is the scariest, most undemocratic statement I think I've ever heard said in the Senate. I mean, this is like some dictator shit, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's we've heard this from Trump before himself. You know, if you don't vote for me, you're going to lose everything. You know,
right?
It's part of the fear mongering that comes with this type of leadership.
Right, but he's trying to draw some sort of distinction here by. I
absolutely get what you're saying.
What president would run? First of all, what president would run thinking that the country would be worse off without him? Even if he was selfish and acting much in his own self-interest like Trump does, Trump still believes deeply, I imagine, that he knows how to run the country better than anyone else. And how do you run for president without believing that, first of all? So the precedent set here is that every president is above the law.
Yeah.
I mean, according to Alan Dershowitz.
Yeah, that's a very dangerous precedent to be set.
And I don't know, like, certainly there's a lot of liberal heads that exploded over these statements. I'm surprised that I didn't hear at least a few Republicans go, well, we don't really agree with that. We just don't believe that. Because the Republicans' defense on acquitting him was, well, yeah, he did something wrong. He just didn't do something impeachably wrong. That's what they tried to walk away with. And meanwhile, his lawyer's like, no, it's not that he did something wrong. It's that he can't do anything wrong. And while that's an insane argument for a lawyer to make as well, that any one person would be above the law, it is kind of brilliant on his end, because who Alan Dershowitz is really talking to, he's not talking to the legal scholars and the Senate or the president or anybody really, except for people who are going to vote for Trump. And at their core, that's what they really believe. I don't know if it goes as far as the president should be above the law, but they like the idea that Trump is going to break the rules and change things on levels that other presidents would be afraid to do.
Well, this whole presidency has turned into setting precedents of stepping over the line, and
yeah, it's slowly moving the line.
We know for a fact the first time there's a Democratic president sitting in that chair, that the Republicans are going to try to walk back all this bullshit that they let Trump get away with and say, you can't do this now. Yeah. Because it's only okay when it's their party. And the Democrats would do the same thing. I mean, let's be honest. I don't think they would do it. And I don't think they would do it. I would hope they wouldn't do it en masse like the Republicans have. I mean, one person, Romney, is willing to be like, nah, come on, guys, seriously? Like, look around. Like, most of us are lawyers. We know this is some lawyer bullshit. And also on top of this, hasn't the Republicans for the last 4 years, every Republican pundit worth his salt pointed out constantly that the facts don't give a fuck about your feelings? So who cares if the president feels what he's doing is best for the country? The fact remains he broke the law.
Right. That's the other thing, is you can't make a legal argument for acquitting someone based on what they feel, because you can't ultimately know that. You don't know what Trump. I mean, maybe Trump's worse than I imagine, and he's just trying to screw this country over as much as possible, and is just focused on, but I do truly believe that he thinks he's acting in the best interest of the country. We just think of America as two very different countries, Donald Trump and I. But you can't make a legal argument. I mean, can you imagine trying to get somebody acquitted for assault charges by proving that the guy that got assaulted was an asshole, and that your guy that you're defending really felt like he deserved an ass beating?
I mean,
what do the feelings don't come into it?
If people got acquitted because people felt that someone deserved what they got, we'd have a lot less of a population problem than we do right now on this planet. Seriously. I mean, come on now. It's we all know it's absolutely ridiculous and it's bullshit. And it was just an excuse. Basically, he knew he could get up there. You were right. You're absolutely right. He knew he could get up there and say anything because he knew that maybe one or two outliers were going to get up and vote against Trump from his own party. But ultimately, no.
Right. And I think
it was going down party lines.
So I think that he was directly addressing Trump supporters with his closing message, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a message in there for the Republicans in the Senate as well, because I think part of what he was doing, and maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but the guy seems like a smart guy in general. He has some weird opinions and he makes some ridiculous arguments sometimes, but he's a lawyer, right? But I think ultimately what he was saying is, look, I don't really believe this, and you don't really believe this. But let's think about the millions of people out there that voted for Trump and will again, who do believe this. That's who you should be concerned about. If you vote to convict this president, you're going to have to be dealing with losing those votes yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, that just goes back to something I said a few weeks ago. It's not the Republican Party, it's the party of Trump at the moment. And if you go against Trump, you do it at your own peril.
Well, Mitt Romney's been declared by CNN as the leader of the old GOP.
Which means he's got a nice big target painted on his forehead.
Right. Oh, I mean, there's already ads running from a Trump-supporting PAC that are saying that they're outright calling Mitt Romney not just a rhino, but a Democrat agent, and that he tried to infiltrate the White House.
Okay. It's amazing how much difference 8 years makes, isn't it? Yeah. 8 years ago, Obama was this socialist, Muslim, white person hating asshole who was going to destroy the White House, and Romney was this, savior. Now it's, Obama's basically a Republican, according to the people on the far left, and according to the people in the quote unquote Republican Party, Romney's a Democrat. He's a double agent. It's all okay.
I mean, I hope that I do hope that Romney would be end up being a leader of a more old style GOP, right? The type of crazy that we could talk to before.
Well,
but I don't see that happening.
If he voted his conscience based on his religion, if it was truly based on, if that vote was his conscience because of his faith was telling him there's no other way you can vote. Look at this man. This man is an abomination to everything that you hold dear when it comes to your faith and your religion.
Yeah. And I do applaud Mitt Romney. I'm not a huge fan of the guy, but I believe that was absolutely a brave thing to do. Many people would not do something similar. To be why would I be the only guy to stick his neck out when everyone else that I know and have to deal with on a daily basis is going one way?
It takes balls.
It's going to cost them.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I would almost think his best bet is to retire before re-election.
Yeah,
because if not, I mean, the only thing I can think is that he does it because he feels obligated to his constituents to represent them, because he doesn't feel that anyone who would come in and take his place from the Democrats or what's left of the Trump party, we'll just call it that for the time being, that neither would represent his constituents the way they need to be represented. But that rolling thunder ball of Trump, I don't think he can withstand it. I really don't.
Well, he doesn't have he doesn't have any support to actually do anything. I get CNN's point. He is the last vestige of the old GOP, but that I mean, makes him a leader of who exactly? Like Andrew Sullivan? I mean,
Andrew Sullivan and shit. I don't even know. But doesn't it? Okay, but doesn't it tell you something that with people that 10 years ago would be on Bill Maher, who were firmly in one side or the other, would comfortably call themselves a Democrat or Republican, that the wackos in both parties have pushed the people who compromise isn't a bad word to out of the parties.
Yeah,
like they want jihadists for their parties. They want people who are willing to die. They don't want people who are willing to even compromise with the other side, to sit down at the table and say, can we reach an agreement? We understand not everyone's going to get everything that we want.
Yeah.
But let's try to get 50%
we saw
what you
that,
want, 50%
right?
what I want.
I mean, not to jump ahead, because I wanted to cover a lot more of this, the impeachment fallout, but we just saw that in the Iowa caucus. I mean, Biden was the guy who was like, hey, get me in office. I know how to talk to these guys. And everyone was like, fuck you. We don't want to put in somebody that's going to talk to anybody.
You know, I sat down with I sat down with a friend of mine who's a right-leaning centrist, for probably the best way to put it. And I said, honestly, in our lifetime, what sparked this deepest hatred between the parties to where no one will give an inch? And I mean, we went through the presidents, and it's like, Carter, no, he might have been a great man, but he wasn't that great of a president. Reagan, I know plenty of people that were Democrats that consider Reagan a all right president because their bank accounts did well in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? So whatever. Clinton, like, what was the big deal? I think Clinton's biggest sin was introducing his wife into politics, because Clinton wasn't a communist. Clinton was a centrist in this country and a center right in any other country in the West. So that, and Daddy Bush, he didn't even last 2 terms. So that brings us to W. And honestly, could we even say W was running his own presidency? I to this day, you can convince. I won't say you can't, because it would take like a lot to convince me that Cheney wasn't the one pulling the strings and W was just up there. Just go up there and give speeches. Dodge shoes when they get thrown at you. Just do that for me. That's what we need you to do.
Well, right. But we see that in the policy. Their policy was the same as it was guys that had been in Washington for decades trying to get shit done. And then somebody was like, well, hey, this guy's got a last name that's very electable and people seem to like him, and he'll do whatever you fucking say. He'll authorize a bombing of whatever country you point to on a map.
Pretty much, as long as Vice is here, I'm gonna go ahead and do what he says. I'm okay with it. As long as I got Rummy and Vice, I'm good. But no, okay. But even then, you've seen a lot of people who really disliked W at that time soften up on him since. So what does that leave us with? The last 2 presidents. So, okay, Obama. What did Obama do to deserve all this hate, to start all this reactionary bullshit?
Brown suit, saluted with a coffee. Well, that's right. He was black.
Yeah. Not saying that's the number 1 reason, but it's in the top 5. But you're absolutely right, and it's the Tea Party was a direct response to his election. 2 years later, all of a sudden these people who couldn't find their own asshole with 2 hands, a flashlight, and a map got organized enough to get these teabaggers in there, and then Trump came out and started saying everything he wanted to say. These people wanted to say, because he didn't give a shit. And now we're dealing with this idiot. And you can say what you want about Obama, love him or hate him. Even if you believe behind the scenes the man was literally wiping his ass with the American flag and jerking off onto Bibles and, praying with the Quran 5 times a day towards Mecca, he at least put on a show of the position of the President of the United States as a respectful position. We now have a president who addresses the media and talks like a stand-up comedian. Oh, that's some bullshit. I'm not, what? That's our president? And then the very people who, if any other president in the history of, in our lifetimes had said that, they'd have jumped down his throat. How unprofessional, unclassy, et cetera. Well, he just tells it like it is. That's why we love him. That's why we voted for him.
How does he get away with it? No one really knows. He's the Ricky Gervais of politicians.
Yeah, but at least Ricky Gervais tells some truth. You know what I'm saying? Anytime I've brought up the fact that every time this man exhales, lies come falling out of his mouth. The next thing I hear is, yeah, but what about Pelosi, or what about Clinton, or what about, and okay, fine, but you didn't address the point. Let's stop acting like he's infallible, then he's not a politician. He's worse, he's a businessman. Politicians at least have to pander to you every election cycle. Business people don't. They just got to keep, they just have to make enough of a profit to keep their job. That's it. I mean,
and then,
this is where we're at, and for whatever reason, but I know what reason, the Republicans have decided he wins. We're going to ride this one we're going to ride the Trump train till the wheels fall off, because they care more about winning than they care about any of their so-called principles or whatever. So, this is a little bit more darker if you think about it. Maybe their true principles. A lot of these politicians' true principles are aligned with the shit that Trump pulls. I mean, who knows what's truly in their hearts? They're politicians.
Well, right, but I mean, in the same way, he's like W in that respect, because Trump doesn't believe half the shit that he says. He just knows it's what a certain segment of the population want to hear. So absolutely, the Republicans are agreeing with him. He's able to get things done that other politicians couldn't, because people just accept this behavior from Trump.
Well, shit, it's not only accepted, it's encouraged, it's applauded, it's celebrated. I mean, do you remember, I don't even think Obama had been in office for a full year at this point. No, he hadn't, because it was September of 2009. It was the Video Music Awards where Kanye West hopped on stage, grabbed the mic from Taylor Swift, and was like, I'm going to let you finish, but Beyonce had the greatest video of all time.
Uh-huh.
And they were interviewing Obama, and someone kept recording, and his mic was hot during a commercial break, and they said, what'd you think about the Kanye thing? And he just laughed and went, the guy's a jackass. Oh, yeah. Man. Oh, whew. How dare a president use that language? And every time some people pointed out, he didn't think he was on the air. Oh, that makes it worse. So he's got one face to the public and one face behind. But when the camera's not on,
so does everybody. You're telling me you talk the same way at home that you do at work? Well, it depends on where your job is. Some people are worse at work, but
the only thing you got to say is you're telling me that you've gotten laid by not putting on your best foot forward,
right?
But you on your first date, you invite her over to your house and shit with the bathroom door open. Really? Is that what you do? It's like Chris Rock says, when you first meet someone, you're not meeting them, you're meeting a representative. All right, so. But yeah, these people. Oh God, it's so horrible. He said that. Yeah, I think we all agree, and this is a bipartisan agreement, Kanye West is a jackass for the most part. So,
Yes.
I mean, I don't care if he wears a MAGA hat or not. He was a jackass long before his mental breakdown. You know, he's always been.
Yeah.
So, but this is, it's so strange to me, and I should be used to it by now, but I'm just not. It's just like the shit that happened during the State of the Union speech. I was like,
that was insane. I mean,
this is surreal. It was one thing after another after another. First of all, senators chanting 4 more years. Have you ever heard of anything like that during the State of the Union?
No, and the State of the Union address always drives me nuts, even if I agree with what they're saying, because I just want to scream, will you people get a grip on yourselves? Like, you're not seeing the Beatles for the first time. Sit down, shut up, and just listen. And let's get this over with. Why the fuck? What's with this fucking, like, theater behind all of it?
I feel like they need to have the Academy Awards wrap-up music.
Yeah.
You know? Just hit the button. All right, let's wrap it up, buddy. Come on, let's go.
Unregimented.
ChristopherMedia.net. ChristopherMedia.net.
Unregimented.
But no, to me, that was nothing more than just a glorified stump speech / free campaign commercial.
Yep.
And I mean, granted, I've kind of always felt that way about State of the Union speeches, especially in election years. But like, that was just ridiculous. You know, hey. We got Rush Limbaugh in the crowd. Good to see you, Rush. Hey, we're going to give him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, but I'm going to have my wife pin it on him right now. And the Academy Award for acting shocked that that something's about to happen to him goes to Rush Limbaugh. That's the best acting I've seen from him ever, when he was like,
yeah. Oh yeah. Because it was just like, oh, look at Rush. It just happens to be here. This is great. I can give him his award now. Yeah. We know that Rush, first of all, was told that he had to be there because they were going to give him this award. I don't know. I can't imagine the idea that Rush Limbaugh is. I mean, I can't even say it. The Presidential Medal of Freedom. This is like one of the highest awards. This is saved for the best of the best. People that are beyond reproach. People who have actually done something for society. Not this fucking asshole. And you know what? I don't give a shit that he's got cancer. Great. Let's get him the fuck off this planet as soon as possible. Stage 4? That was the best news I heard all day.
And we are available for hospice care for your loved ones. Just so you know.
Really? You know, he deserves
Dr. Aaron will take care of you.
He deserves no sympathy. You remember what he said?
No, oh, dude, he remember I ain't racist, and then a black chick called in to call him on his bullshit, and he told her, go take the bone out your lip and then call me back, because I can't understand what you're saying. And I mean, like, if that was a comedic bit in a movie, that's funny. But I'm like, really? Like, even Howard Stern wouldn't say that shit in his most debaucherous of days. Like, and this is not a comedy podcast. This isn't a comedy radio show. This isn't a morning show. This is right. It's supposed to be like sensible sensible. I guess that's relative, but you know what I'm saying. A serious political show. But
the man's despicable. Do you remember when Michael J. Fox did the? He came out and he said that he has what is it again?
Parkinson's.
Yeah. Okay. So he has Parkinson's. He went public with it, and he even did that. He did some sort of, like, I don't know if you want to call it a PSA or whatever, but after that was released, Trump's on his radio show saying that he's faking it. That Michael J. Fox, his announcement that he has Parkinson's was for attention, and that he was, because he said that he wasn't. Like you notice, his body was moving around, but his eyes were always right on the teleprompter, so he can control himself.
Okay, wait a minute. Ecstasy makes your eyes jerk around uncontrollably, not Parkinson's.
Right.
Okay, so I don't first. And why are we listening to Donald Trump and Rush Limbaugh about medical diagnosis and symptoms of these diagnoses? I'm sorry. What are either of them MDs? Even honorable PhDs holders? No. Then why are we listening to these idiots? But yes, when you brought it up, I forgot he said that he was faking that shit.
He called him a gold bricker.
And then, he was, I remember this clear as day when he had his his short-lived TV show. It was right after Clinton won in 92. It was like a week or two after he won that election. Someone in his audience asked a question about the first family, and he was like, well, the only thing we know is that they have a dog living in the White House, and the dog's name's Chelsea. And he's talking about Chelsea Clinton when she's 12, 13. Yeah, I think he was one of the, if I'm remembering correctly, I think he was one of the first people to say that Barron Trump is off limits.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm like, really? Mr. High-functioning autistic who'd rather be playing Call of Duty than standing next to his father on election night? He's off limits, but you can call a 12, 13-year-old child a dog and attack her looks? And he just looked like he literally, what did Barron Trump look like? A bored-ass kid who'd rather be home playing video games.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the twitchiness that made me think he's somewhere on the spectrum, but shit, the more I learn about humanity, I think we're all on the spectrum to a certain extent. Fuck. I think humanity is the spectrum.
Yeah, no, exactly. We've all got our compulsions about one thing or another.
But yeah, it's just... Like, there was the, look, I get giving away an honorable promotion, but you're going to bump a 100-year-old dude up to a brigadier general, a one-star general. Like,
what's this?
Yeah, he was a Tuskegee Airman.
Okay.
He's 100 years old, and he was promoted to brigadier general. That's a one-star general. It was brigadier, major, lieutenant, and four-star general. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 stars. That's how you know what level general you are. Mm-hmm. And it's like, really? And he's standing there in his dress uniform, and I'm thinking, where do you find a dress uniform that fits a 100-year-old man? Because I damn sure know that's not the one he was wearing fresh out of basic. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I don't care how good a shape you're in. No 100-year-old man is the same measurements as an 18-year-old coming out of basic training. So
what did that? So it was just like it's like an honorary degree, basically, is what they gave him.
Essentially,
they're just honoring the dude.
I mean, I don't think I've ever heard of it like being done at a State of the Union. You know what I'm saying? Like everything reeked of I'm pandering to a certain crowd with everything I'm doing.
Well, yeah, the one serviceman that was brought home early and reunited with his family. First of all, wait a minute. Why was the rest of his family there?
I don't know. I might have checked out by that point.
Yeah.
At a certain point, I checked out and would come back and check in, and I'm like, this shit's still going? Oh my God. Like, seriously. I was like, I just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. They had some guy in the military came home and was reunited with his family right there during the address. Like, using the troops for political theater, and it's really disgusting.
Well, the one I saw was there was a mother and her son, and he started talking, and when this, I think he was a sergeant or whatever, but he was on his second tour over in the sandbox, and they were like, he had left his 1-year-old son back at home, and he sent a letter home, and he started quoting from the letter that, he couldn't wait to get home and watch his son do all these, things for the first time. And then he was killed. when his son was only 1 year old. And, of course, the wife / mother, she's crying and everything. And the kid's sitting there like with the most uncomfortable look on his face.
Oh, what the fuck, man?
And I'm thinking, like, if that kid's anything like my little brother, like, he's probably thinking, like, I don't even really remember my dad all that well. Like, right. And especially at 1, you don't remember your dad. Let's just be honest. I mean, unless you're like 0.0001% of the population that can remember that far back in your life. Congratulations.
Right, as sad as it is, it's almost a saving grace that he doesn't have anybody to actually mourn.
Yeah, but I mean, it was so uncomfortable to watch because I was like, this kid, like, first of all, he's what? I think he's like 9, 10, 11 tops. No one wants to be standing there and have all those people stare at you about some shit like that. Most kids are miserably uncomfortable with that much of it and that type of attention.
Yeah. Hey, kid, you're going to be on national television. Why? Because you don't have a dad.
And it's like, yeah, I do. No. Your biological father, not the man that Mama found at the O Club right after Daddy got killed.
Hey, son, sit down. I got good news and bad news. Good news, we're going to be on TV. Bad news, it's not your daddy.
And here's a song to explain it. It's called "Alive" by Pearl Jam. It's like, like
that actually is his daddy. You know how I told you that I told everyone that your dad was the guy who went and died? Well, actually, your stepdad is your real dad, but now we have to tell the whole world that your real dad is actually the guy who died overseas. That would be too convoluted. I don't know where I'm going with this.
I don't know. It's turning into, like, what is it, the last season of Mad Men? Right. And Don Draper turned out to be like somebody else, and they just switched identities in the war, or Summersby, the movie with Richard Gere.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, that was set during post-Civil War, so it was a little easier to say, hey, you look a little different than I remember. War changes a man. Yeah, well, it's been 10 years. Yeah, I guess I could, you're gray. Then what gave him away is he went to go to the cobbler and he'd get some new shoes. They pulled out his old footprint. They're like, how the hell did your feet get 3 sizes bigger? Like, we don't care how much war you've been through. That doesn't happen. You know what I'm saying? So,
I stepped on a landmine?
Even though it's post-Civil War? Yeah, like, what's a landmine? A cannonball got dropped on my foot and flattened it out.
Yes.
Looney Tunes style. But no, I mean, it's just the kid looks so uncomfortable, and it's like, look, I get it, I understand, but you're telling me there's not a family who you could have found, I mean, that, like, had kids that remembered, the family member who was lost. I mean, it's not the fact
I feel like there was a producer behind the scenes somewhere going, the kid's not crying. Why isn't he crying?
Yes, it was like, well, he's this young kid that'll pull at the heartstrings more. It's like, right. Oh my God, these are human fucking beings, assholes. These aren't. Well, I know that's how people, like normal people, look at these people in these situations. People in marketing and television and advertising, they're not normal. They look at them as, puppets to manipulate the masses with. How can we pull at people's heartstrings? We'll send a kid out there who is, lost his father at 1 year old, and a mother who's still upset about it and is crying about it. Yeah, that'll really play well in the flyover states. Go ahead, send them out.
Little tragedy porn always works for a spike in the ratings.
And there's I tuned into the last bit of this, but I got to hear both of the progressive channel on satellite radio and the conservative channel on satellite radio's take on it. It was apparently a person who came into the country illegally, went to a sanctuary city, and while they were in the sanctuary city, robbed a store that was owned by a small business owner, and that small business owner was killed in the process, and they had like the small business owner's brother there for like, you know, we're going to get justice for him and shit like that. And it's, you know, so basically to play on the, hey, we still haven't forgotten, we're still going to build that wall. One of these decades, we're still going to build that wall.
Right.
And we're in the second decade of building the wall now. Like, not 20 years, but like we left the 2010s, we're in the 2020s. Wall's still not built. So yeah.
Even the small section that they built, they said that it was in a floodplain, and they had to actually open up the bottom part of the wall, the gate that they constructed, because of the flood. And I mean, it's all you'd have to do is like crouch and walk underneath it.
Oh, Jesus God. Oh, and I wonder how many millions that cost for that engineering marvel.
That's the thing, is that this is something that, you know, they really did a lot. Trump did a lot in his speech, but every president that I can remember has done it to some degree. And that's the personal examples, right? So they want to, you know, like you said, they want to pull at the heartstrings. And, you know, they want to find specific stories that are going to tell the story that they want to tell. And I don't know. You could find any individual story and make it say whatever you want about, you know, or I mean, actually it'd be the opposite. You could just reverse engineer it, right? It's here's what I want to say. Find me somebody that's an example of that. And, you know, one person coming over illegally, committing a crime, and somebody else dies, that doesn't really tell you anything. I'm sure it happens. But, you know, another thing that we know is it doesn't happen in the same numbers as the people who live here. People that were born here commit more crimes and commit more violent acts and end up with more deaths than illegal immigrants.
Well, once again, it's like, all right, well, what are we doing to handle the situation? What are we doing to better vet people, to make it easier for them to apply for citizenship, vet them quickly and efficiently as possible, and streamline their path to citizenship? What are we doing about that? We're building a wall.
Nothing. Right. No, they're saying this is an emergency. First, we stop the bleeding. Then we'll figure out the plan to repair this situation going forward. But that's the thing. There's never going to be, because the repair is build the wall and keep them out.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's gotten to the point where if you point out, that's putting a Band-Aid on a shotgun wound. Well, why are you being so negative? We give you a solution. You didn't give me a solution. You gave me a stopgap measure. That's what you did,
and not even a very good one.
Yeah, this isn't going to solve anything. This isn't going to. A wall does not stop anybody. It just slows them down. Okay, so you've slowed them down for what? What you've slowed them down, so what have we sped up on our side to solve this issue? Nothing. In fact, we probably added more layers of bureaucracy to clog the works and make things move slower than they already do.
Well, what happened when the governments decided to start cracking down on large marijuana grows, outdoor marijuana grows in the 70s? We got hydro. Everyone moved their shit inside where the helicopters couldn't see it. They started growing hydroponically, which allows them to crossbreed and get super concentrated strains. And they had a much more powerful product and a much more effective way of growing it. So those helicopters were the best thing for the illegal marijuana trade in the U.S. And that's like anything else. Water will find a way. You can't just put up a dam and think that you solve the problem.
Well, I've never been convinced that a wall is going to help, and I still don't understand people who think that that's going to stop anything. I really don't. So there's no point. Like anytime people start bringing that up to me, I'm just like, okay, whatever. There's no point in even talking to you about this subject because it's just nonsense.
I would have more respect if they just admitted that the wall makes them feel better and sends the rest of the world the message that they want. That's really what the wall's about.
Well, there's been a few people who bring up good points. They're like, look, should we just have open borders? Absolutely not. I understand that.
Right.
A wall is not securing the borders in and of itself. It's not going to stop anything. It's just going to slow someone down.
That's like saying, should I get a gun? No, you shouldn't get a gun to protect your house. Oh, so I guess I'll just put all my stuff on the front lawn then.
Yeah.
No, there's other options, You can just get a security system.
Well, depending on the neighborhood, you can mount a 50 cal on top of your house. Hook it up to an automated system, Walter White style.
Doesn't even have to be real.
But no, it like everything in that State of the Union, and in the end of it. I'm glad I didn't see this live, but if you've paid attention to the news, you've had to see the petty bowl of 2020, where Trump turns around and hands his notes from the State of the Union to Pelosi. She goes to shake his hand. He turns around and ignores her, and then she rips up his notes. And everybody's all upset about this, and I'm just like, what does this fucking matter to anything? Like, haven't we already seen this from Trump in the debates in 2016? Didn't his first debate with Clinton, he didn't shake her hand?
Right.
This is nothing new. This is one of his bullshit power moves. So why are you shocked by this? 2, her ripping that up. I honestly, I don't know what that proved or solved. Besides, like, I guess that was like kind of a, hey, look, I'm defiant at the moment. But I mean, I don't know what's worse, if she did it in the spur of the moment because he refused to shake her hand, or if she had it planned. Because if she had it planned, that makes it seem like even more like petty and childish.
I really don't. I mean, who knows? Who could ultimately know that for a fact, one way or another? But I really don't feel like it was planned out. I mean, she commented on it afterward, and very much described it as just. That's what she felt at the moment. Said, actually, yeah, I've got her quote here. He shredded the truth, so I shredded his speech. What we heard last night was a disgrace. And I don't know, there's a lot of pettiness going on, but I didn't think that was that big of a deal. And I don't think it's cool. Like, yeah, Pelosi really stuck it to the president. But I just feel like, yeah, if I was in Pelosi's shoes, I probably would have done the same thing.
Well, I mean, not to be out-pettied, but I can't remember who, but obviously he's a Republican. He come out and said, well, according to this law, this obscure law that I had one of my staffers dig up overnight, that's government property. She destroyed government property. She should be charged with that. And it's like, didn't you people just get done bitching about frivolous investigations and trials, and now you want to really?
Yeah,
that's like if you join the military and you get a tattoo while you're in the military. Technically, your body belongs to the military when you sign your papers. Getting a tattoo is defacing military property. Yeah. Yes. How many people in the military are covered in tattoos? How many people are sitting in exactly? You get my point. All right. Like,
yeah. No, professional idiot Matt Gaetz was touting that same thing. He was saying that she destroyed an official government document, and he wants her censured. Says, he's going to file ethics charges against her. How is that defined as unethical behavior? I don't think he understands English. Here's his quote. Pelosi disgraced the House of Representatives. She embarrassed our country, and she destroyed official records. The law does not allow the Speaker of the House to destroy the records of the House, and the rules of the House do not permit some little temper tantrum just because you don't like what the President of the United States says.
Okay, so...
Well, the rules of the House don't specifically say that you can't have a temper tantrum either.
Well, we already knew that from "You lie."
Yeah.
Really? Someone just, either someone has the world's most convenient Tourette's at that moment, or that was a temper tantrum of an outburst. But whatever. I see. Here's my problem. To deal with this shit, I have to look at this I have to detach myself from my political leanings and try to look at this from as just an observer of the situation's point of view. All right. And if you're already in the camp of I'm voting for Trump and that's it, no one's worried about you. They're just going to Trump's going to throw you a bone every once in a while. Nothing the other side's going to say is going to affect you one way or the other. If you're in I'm going to vote for anybody, I'm going to hold my nose and vote for anybody besides Trump camp, they already got you. They're going to throw you a bone. Eventually they'll whittle it down. People will figure out what candidate's going up against them. And the same thing will be said about those people. But that's a very small percentage of people who are going to go vote eventually. And shit like this can be spun so easily. And everything is under such a microscope that this could easily turn into this election's deplorables comment, or bitterly clinging to their guns and Bibles comment. The comment that, the one thing that's used and blown out of proportion, taken out of context, however you want to look at it, and used to beat over the head of the one side from the Republicans is her tearing up the paper. Look at this temper tantrum. Like a child. Look at her. Like a child not getting her way. Just that condescending attitude. And that's going to work with some people who are in the middle. And at this point, you really can't afford to be giving shit up. You really can't. I mean,
Unregimented.
ChristopherMedia.net.
If you're looking for COVID-19 testing, look into Quest, the lab that's processed over 25 million tests and counting. You can get the same test hospitals use without a doctor visit. Simply order online, select from drive-through or at-home options, and get results sent securely to your phone or computer. It's experience and accuracy you can trust from Quest, the largest medical testing lab in the country. So order today at questcovid19.com. That's questcovid19.com.
ChristopherMedia.net.
Unregimented.
I don't know. Like, I agree with the point that you're making generally, but I think that obviously the Republicans are going to make they have the ability to make mountains out of molehills. And like we were talking about earlier with Obama, he saluted somebody with a coffee cup and they lose their fucking mind. So what does it really matter? The Republicans are going to say whatever they're going to say, and they're going to pull whatever they can to try and make their case. I don't think that you should let that dictate your behavior. Now, again, I generally agree with you that every time that you lose your cool, in general, not just in politics, but when a person loses their cool, they give up some of their power. And that's no different for Pelosi than anybody else. But is this going to be the thing that, sure, they're going to bring it up again. I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll make an issue. Donald Trump Jr. is saying that he's comparing Nancy Pelosi to the devil. So,
okay. Wow.
He was at the National Prayer Breakfast. The likelihood of Nancy Pelosi praying for Trump is about the same as the likelihood of Satan running around quoting the scriptures, he also put on Twitter.
Okay, that proves that man does not know the Bible, because it says in the Bible, Satan knows the Bible better than any man on the face of this earth, because he uses his knowledge of it to deceive man.
Yeah.
So, whatever. Why I know that about this big book of Jewish fairy tales, I don't know, but I do know it's in there because it's been beaten in my head that remember the Satan will fool you. He'll convince you. He'll use God's word and twist it, and that's how he gets you. Yeah, I've heard that my entire life from my religious side of the family. So,
yeah,
Eric Trump, sit down. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
ultimately, whether it was spur of the moment or not, was Pelosi's actions and Rashida Tlaib and others who walked out, were those actions should be classified as political theater, just like Trump's speech and his staging of the medals and all that stuff? Absolutely. It's all political theater, yes. But I don't think that the Democrats should totally lose their shit. But I kind of appreciate the fact that, especially now that Donald Trump's been acquitted and the whole nation realizes that whether you think he's guilty or not, he's not going to be held accountable for anything, then I appreciate the fact that the Democrats in some way are acting like they're not playing the same game, right? They're not trying to work within the same system anymore. And that's part of the advantage of not losing your cool, right? Because at some point in the future, Nancy Pelosi is going to have to work with people that she doesn't agree with. She's going to have to work with Republicans.
But see,
when you've got only Mitt Romney breaking away from his party on this acquittal vote, what are you saving your political capital to work with the Republicans for? So that they can continue to beat you over the head with it? They're going to beat Nancy Pelosi over the head with whatever they can get their hands on, regardless of what she does, because they disagree with her ideologically.
See, but this is the path.
There is no coming to the table.
This is the path that leads us down to like a very dark road, because eventually, if that is the attitude, if that's
Nancy Pelosi didn't lead us down this path.
I'm not assigning what you're saying is tit for tat. Well, if the Republicans won't come to the table, then why should she even bother to put on airs of being willing to come to the table? So let her do this. What's it matter? Okay, then the Republicans have to retaliate, and then the Democrats retaliate, and it further and further and further away from any type of getting shit done and moving shit forward. It just the further and further away we get. What good does that do us? Because there's a lot of people in the middle going, you adults who are politicians need to grow the fuck up and sit down and put your bullshit aside and get some shit done.
For all the faults of the Democrats, and I don't agree with everything that they're doing and all of their policies, but at least I believe that they still hold the same ideals that I do generally when it comes to what this country means. And the Republicans don't. The Republicans are anti-American, and they should stop being treated as equals. They're fucking traitors.
Oh, I mean, okay. If that's the way you see it, that's the way you see it, man. I understand why you feel that way, but I look down that road and I'm like, wow. I don't see how that's going to help anybody in the long run. I really don't. Somebody at some point, either we have to demand more of our leaders,
but what is there to work with?
Or our leaders need to understand that they need to demand more of each other. And as long as as long as their cheering section cheers them on with this petty bullshit nonsense, and we're going to get Trump, and then we're going to get the response to Trump from the left, from the Democrats, who's going to be their demigod. And then we're going to get the response to that. And it becomes, how much further down this rabbit hole do we want to go?
What we're going to continue to see on this path is the degrading of the power of the judicial and legislative branches. And, because that's the biggest damage that Trump has just been the latest straw on the back of the camel, because each president has continued to accrue power. Not one of them gives it up. And again, like if Bernie is the nomination, I'll vote for him. And the idea that he wants to legalize cannabis is very attractive to somebody like me. But when he comes out and says that he's going to legalize cannabis day one with this fucking presidential decree on the paper, with an executive order. With an executive order, thank you. That just makes me shake my head and go, he doesn't get it. None of these Democrats get it.
I absolutely agree with you. To me, when I hear, Medicare for all, free tuition. We're going to get it done. We're going to get it done in the first year. I'm just sitting there going, this is your version of Mexico's, we're going to build the wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. Like, do you understand how much political opposition you're going to face? And do you understand how low the Republicans are willing to go to fight you on this shit? This is the party that refused, just flat out, no, we're not going to do it. Just refused to even have hearings on a Supreme Court nominee because he was a quote-unquote lame duck president who made the nomination.
Yep.
It just went, nah, we're not going to do it. Wait a minute.
Oh, yeah, by the way, isn't it time? Like, Trump's a lame duck, right? I mean, he shouldn't be able to make any policies going forward because we don't know what's going to happen in the election.
Well, yeah, if that's the, what was it? Because they tried to play it off. And I mean, Biden did say the shit, but Biden said the shit 30 years ago. And by the way, once again, so no one can ever be wrong. I mean, Biden should have took the hit and come out and said, yeah, I said the shit 30 years ago, and the shit was wrong 30 years ago. The shit's wrong now. What's your point? No one's right 100% of the time, despite what any of these politicians might say. But whatever. It's just, look, the hope for me is that if Bernie ends up with the nomination, what I like about Bernie is he is not neck deep in the identity politics bullshit. He's more concerned about, because I think it was on Bill Maher this last week. I heard someone say something that made a lot of sense. If you can't put food on your table and you can't keep a roof over your head, believe me, microaggressions, manspreading, and pronouns aren't going to mean shit to you when you're starving to death. Okay? And we're getting to the point where the gap between the haves and the have-nots is growing at a just ridiculously scary rate. And the middle class is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. If we don't do something to stop it and we focus on all this nonsense and this bullshit, we're all fucked in the end. We're all going to be standing in bread lines. Everybody's going to, okay, what's your pronoun? Here's your slice of bread for the day. Here's your allotment of milk for the day. Here's your this for the day. I don't want that. I certainly don't want that. And that's one of the things that I like about Bernie. He seems to not be lost in his woke flake bullshit, and he seems to worry more about the economy, about the divide in class. But then again, I like the same thing about Yang. Yang said one of the most pragmatic things I've ever heard a politician running for president say in my lifetime. We've been trying trickle down for 40 years, and it hasn't worked. Why don't we try trickle up? Why don't we give people who we know are going to spend the money and put it into the economy some money for a change? We've been trying it the other way for 40 years. Their profits go up, wages stay stagnant, and the middle class shrinks. The experiment has failed. It's time to reverse the experiment.
Right. And people are pushing back on that with, you're just reappropriating funds. You're just going to take my tax money and then give it to somebody who doesn't work as hard as I do for my money. But what he's actually talking about is taxing tech companies that make money off of our data, putting a tax on that, and giving it back to the people. Andrew Yang's smart as fuck, and I wish I lived in a country where I could see him being elected. If Iowa is any indication,
yeah, he was
below Biden in Iowa.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know, It's Iowa. We haven't even gotten to Super Tuesday, and already the tinfoil 3-piece suits have come out. And it's like, God damn, do we have to? But I mean, then there's shit that's like, man, there's a lot of dots that are connected. That if that's not on purpose, that's a hell of a coincidence.
But
like the makers of the app that Iowa is using to collect all the data. Yeah, they just also happen to be, all the creators and people who worked on this app also happen to be former Hillary Clinton staffers who are now for Mayor Pete. And Mayor Pete has this sweeping win of Iowa compared to what was projected. On top of that, with no precincts reporting, he declared himself the winner. With no precincts reporting, who the fuck has ever done that besides, well, I don't even think George Bush, I don't even think W did that. They at least told him, no, shut up, W. We got to wait till at least like 2% reports before we let them know the fix is in. Come on, what the fuck?
Right.
You know, idiot. This is why we wanted Jeb for this job. But, I mean, come on, man. It's just like, wow, really? And we know that the Democratic National Committee is no big fan of Bernie because, let's be honest, Bernie uses them like shake and bake mix. When it comes time to run for president, I'm going to put that D by my name. But for how long did he run around with an independent, with an I by his name? Mm-hmm. You know, and to be honest with you, it's not like the Democrats did anything for him back then, so why should he bend over backwards to do anything for him now? But he played ball in 2016. He gave his endorsement to Hillary after, you know, he
he got rat fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, there was all that, we'll just say, strangeness surrounding the end of his campaign in 2016. And, you know, it wasn't the Russians and it wasn't fucking Trump that was doing that shit. That was coming from the people that he was running to be that party's nomination.
Well, the first hint of results that I heard from Iowa was about how, it's looking really strong for Bernie, but the DNC is like, hold up, we don't have enough information yet, and we don't know if these results are right, and there's something wrong with this app. You know, it's like they put their hand on the love test and they're like, cold fish, this thing's broken.
Yeah, look, whether or not there's fuckery.
I don't trust the DNC as far as I could throw down to Brazil.
Whether or not there's fuckery afoot behind the scenes. Once again, not to the never Trumpers and not to the Trumpettes or the Trumpites. Those people are already settled. They're already made up their mind. To the rest of the people, this is making the DNC look like fucking clown shoes.
Yes.
And you can't afford this right now. This is the first impression of the 2020 election cycle. And this is the taste you're leaving in their mouth. By the way, after the ridiculousness of those way too early, way too many candidates in them debates.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not looking good for the Democrats coming together on this. I mean, to be in chaos like this while Trump's on his victory tour, that's what they call bad optics.
You know, and just like I said a few weeks ago about the quote unquote progressives that aren't really progressives, they're as was put on Bill Maher earlier this week or last Friday, they're boutique issue voters in a Walmart
Pinos
world.
Now in the party.
You know, those people, like the quote unquote Yang or bust gang, where if Yang doesn't get the nomination, they just won't vote. You can't have that. That's as bad as having a Jill Stein. That's as bad as having a Tulsi Gabbard run as an independent and siphon votes off from the Democrats, because they're not votes going to you. You need to make the point. Do you hate this man? This man who you go on social media and say is literally Hitler since January 21st, 2017, who you got on your knees and screamed and cried on that day when he was inaugurated. Do you hate this man? Do you want him out of the White House? Then hold your fucking nose, grow the fuck up, and vote for the person who's running against him.
Yeah. Also,
you had 2016 to vote for your boutique fucking candidate. You see where that got us. Time to grow up.
Yeah.
Sometimes
to double down on that nonsense when your guy doesn't get one delegate in Iowa, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, who you think you're going to convince somebody? There's going to be a bunch of Bernie supporters that peel off and be like, well, I don't know. These Yang supporters are so passionate, they're not going to vote for Bernie. So throw my support behind the 5% guy.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. If it was Yang and Bernie, like I said, with the poll I saw or the numbers I saw, according to the Associated Press via Google, if it was Yang and Bernie who had 11 delegates each and were a 0.1% difference between each other, and 3 delegate count between each other, I'll be all for Yang. Nothing against Bernie,
right?
But I mean, I'm honest with you. I have some concerns about Bernie. This is a man who had a heart attack in the last 6 months. This is not a spring chicken.
Conversely, if this 2020 race was Romney versus Bernie, and Yang ran as an independent, I'd probably vote for Yang.
That's what I'm saying. This isn't the you people.
But it's not that.
Yes, you.
But it's not, so I won't.
You've had by the time this November rolls around, you'll have almost 4 full years of Trump, and believe me, I've been on social media for those 4 years. I've listened to podcasts. I've listened to NPR. You people hate this man. He is so, his dick is so deep in your mind. I'm surprised it ain't at the base of your fucking spinal cord. Seriously. Like, he is that deep in some of these people's minds. If you hate this man this much, I don't understand how you can play petty bullshit politics and, well, because my candidate didn't get the nomination, I'm not going to vote for him. I just won't vote. But you rather Trump be in office than you don't hate the man as much as you say you do. That's the only conclusion I can come to logically. This is a farce. This is not about getting Trump out of office. It's about you getting your way. That's it.
Right. And a protest vote or a not voting for a good reason, those exist. Abstaining for a good reason exists. This is not a good reason. I mean, do you care about politics and who gets elected, or don't you?
The one thing that does worry me is that even more so than the people who are, my candidate or bust, either my candidate gets the nomination or I don't vote at all. Because I really hope that's I hope that's a very small but just very vocal percentage that really doesn't affect the overall shit. It's the people who think that they're like, I live in this state where the Democrats always win it anyways. Why even bother to vote? Or the Republicans always win it anyways, and I'm a Democrat in this state. Why even bother to vote? And this is coming from someone who believe it or not, like, stepping out of my box of I'm trying to look at this just as dispassionately as an outsider observing the political shenanigans as they happen in a very detached way. If I step back into how I feel, I'm not even convinced our votes matter all that much, to be honest with you. That's how little faith I have in the system at this point. I'm not sure that there isn't fuckery going on behind the scenes. And here's the thing, I'll never know. I don't think I'll ever truly know. It's just one of those things that you have to take it on faith. And me and faith, we don't have a real good relationship when it comes to anything.
Election fuckery is like illegal immigration.
It's inevitable.
we just need to get it down to a reasonable level. We need to get it down to a negligible level, or just win so fucking hard that it doesn't matter.
And see, now that's an interesting point, because I was listening to Jimmy Dore, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, on Joe Rogan. And he's like,
who's that?
He's on the Young Turks. And
okay.
He's like a super progressive guy, but he's not progressive in the way that progressives declare themselves these days. He's like, basically like an old school, I guess, socialist. I care more about the economy. I care more about, equality, the middle class, et cetera, than I do.
Liberal classic.
A classical liberal, I guess. I don't know what. There's so many fucking different designations I've heard thrown out in the last 4 years. I'm just like, I can't keep up. But, he's one of those people that I agree with a lot of what he says, and the shit I disagree with, I'm like, okay, you're way out there. but it's always well thought out. And he brought up something. He said, it's ridiculous that for Bernie to win the Democratic nomination to go against Trump, he's going to have to go into Iowa. He's going to have to come out of Iowa, come out of Super Tuesday. And he said a couple other, stronghold states, and not just win, but win big, demolish the competition to where there is no doubt he won. Or else, if there's wiggle room for some bullshit, the DNC will find a way to wiggle in some bullshit. And he said this podcast was on a week and a half ago, maybe a week ago. So it was before Iowa, and what happened? Exactly what he said was going to happen happened. Bernie didn't come in and smash the numbers as far as the win column, and now there's all this, well, did he get the popular vote? But if he did, does he get more delegates or not? And it's like, I'm sitting here listening to someone trying to break it down. I'm like, wait a minute. You're telling me the Democratic Party, which threw a shit fit in 2000 and a shit fit in 2016 because their candidate got the popular vote but still lost the election, is now trying to say that if Bernie got the popular vote, he shouldn't get as many delegates as Buttigieg for some reason? What? You know what I'm saying?
I know that the whole idea of these caucuses is ridiculous. The way they're handled is ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why it's still just the Democratic Party that does this too. Republicans just do popular vote. That's it. But yeah, I saw I know that there's been a lot of stories of like, it was a close race between two candidates in this one district, and they just flipped a coin to the side. And then I saw video of one of these coin tosses, and there's a bunch of old people, a bunch of old ladies standing around some kid who looked like a teenager, and he flips the coin up into the air with his thumb, catches it in the same hand, and then closes that hand like a fist, and then reaches in with his other hand and pries the coin out and places it in his other hand that is now open. Right? He doesn't catch it and do the flip over onto the back of the other hand. He catches it and pries it out with his other hand for some reason and then places it in his palm.
Jesus Christ. Even the NFL wouldn't consider that a legit coin flip.
No.
Unregimented.
ChristopherMedia.net. ChristopherMedia.net.
Unregimented.
Yeah, look, tradition has its place, but when it comes to this type shit, no. Can we get with the times? Can we get to where there's like, I don't know, a paper trail of ballots at least?
Well, that's what they were.
Besides people raising their hands in the corners of an auditorium?
I don't know how this activity that we hear about of coin flips and writing down things on pieces of paper and chalkboards and whatnot, how all this information transfers to the app. But that's what the app was supposed to do, right? It was supposed to bring us into the future of voting. And they're very vague about how the app failed. I don't really understand how something as simple as adding numbers, right? Like if you don't know how do you even write an app and have it run on any platform if you don't know how to add up numbers? If you can't make a program that adds numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, this app is doing what any basic spreadsheet program could do for you.
That's what
on your fucking phone. So how does it not get the right results or even crash from that? I don't know. None of it makes sense.
And when I hear a political party start saying, well, we had a problem with, one of the systems we're using to tally up the votes, and you go, what's the problem? And they're like, well, we're not sure yet.
Right.
We're still working on it.
This is like if the government tells you there's an inconsistency with your tax return, you don't then go, oh, I'm probably getting more money. Right?
No.
You know what that means. You might not be getting shit.
In fact, you might get a phone call or a letter saying, yes, you need to come to the nearest IRS office and bring your tax returns for the last 7 years. And you might want to hire an attorney or two. Yeah. Right.
And if somebody said, hey, this app might be broken, it's showing that Pete Buttigieg is the clear winner, they would have went, oh, app looks like it's working to me. Moving on.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe this is all conjecture. Maybe there were legitimate problems with the app, and maybe the race really was that tight. But man, I was almost said it doesn't add up, but it does add up. It adds up to the DNC being the DNC.
Well, this is now 2 presidential elections where the poll numbers before and the exit polling numbers on the day of don't match up with the results, which to me means that any politician, any campaign that is taking those poll numbers serious and is paying money to pollsters needs to stop until they can fucking find a polling company that proves that they can give them even ballpark accurate. You know what I'm saying? Can we play the same sport here?
I agree, but ultimately the onus is on us, right? If we stop, and I'm not saying like you and I specifically, but if the general public stops lapping up every poll like it was just handed down on a scroll from God, then they'll stop reporting on all this shit.
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, and once again, tinfoil hat area, it's also a good way to manipulate the public. Because if you tell the public for, a week leading up to the Iowa caucus that your front runners are Bernie and Biden, and then Biden doesn't even Biden might as well not finish. If this was a horse race, Biden might as well not finish. That's how bad his showing was.
Biden might as well have spelled potato wrong.
He might as well pull the Howard Dean and went, yeah! And then that's the end of it. Right. That's campaign over. You know, I mean...
the good old days. Just screaming like a maniac could get you kicked out of the race.
Yeah, now we have politicians who are probably certifiable maniacs, and they get elected. And not just elected, but celebrated. Like, yeah, we want maniacs in there. Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess we'll see going forward. What these other votes are going to look like. I knew that Buttigieg was rising in the polls in general, but I didn't think that he was going to end up tying with Bernie.
No. I thought it was going to be. I thought maybe he would. I figured Bernie and Biden might be this tight, and Buttigieg might edge out Warren for third.
Yeah,
I thought it'd be tight at the top and tight for for third place. But I mean, here's my biggest fear: if I'm a person who's looking at, we need to get Trump out of office, is that DNC fucks Bernie over so bad. Bernie snaps and goes, I'm running as an independent.
Yeah.
There goes, you might as well put it in permanent marker 4 more years of Trump, because that's going to split the Democratic Party vote.
Absolutely.
And that's the one thing you cannot have this election cycle. There cannot be a split. That's worse than them not voting, because at least if you don't, like, people who are that motivated to vote for a third party are going to be the type of people who are going to go stumping for that third party candidate and try to get them to vote for their third party candidate. Well, you look what the DNC did to Bernie, and you liked Bernie, right? They're fucking him over. Come on, man, join the resistance. La resistance. Come on, you got to join it. If you're not going to vote, I don't know many people who just abstain from the political process that walk around and are evangelical about it. Mm-hmm. That try to make you not vote. They just tell you, voting's stupid, doesn't matter, whatever, and they go on about their life. That's why I say it's more dangerous, because you're creating zealots, and I mean, if believe me, if that happens and Bernie goes fuck it and runs as an independent, at that point, Trump's got to be thinking, what did I do in a past life to deserve this?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't think that he would, but while I don't want to see him do it, it would mean, I agree with you, it would mean another 4 years of Trump. I would definitely have more respect for him as well. If somebody's that passionate about it running, like, why would you let anything stop you?
You've been watching Bill Maher since his politically incorrect days on ABC, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you remember the first few seasons of him being on HBO?
Yep.
When he would have
when they were still trying to figure out the show.
Yeah. When it was going through they were trying different bits and segments and shit. But he would have Bernie on, and he'd always ask Bernie, "When are you running for president?" And Bernie would kind of just laugh it off and, "Oh, well, I'm representing the people of Vermont, and I'm very happy doing that right now." Blah, 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 and all that. Looking back, god damn, I wish he'd have ran back in the day. But I don't know if there was any place he could have got in. 2004?
Yeah.
I don't think his message would have played in 2004. 2008, man, it was almost like Obama was a candidate of destiny. I mean, he took down fucking Hillary, and she was the anointed one. So, I mean, where else could he have got in at that point? But I worry that, like, if he doesn't get the nomination this time, that this has to be his last rodeo, right? I mean, the man's 79. He's had a heart attack less than 6 months ago. I'm not one to say that your age should automatically disqualify you, but holy shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, another 4 years, he'll be almost 84 when he's sworn in. If he runs, 4 years from now because he didn't, get the nomination this time. That's just, I can't see too many people in this country, even if they support Bernie, going, sure, I'm willing to get behind that, unless he chooses the perfect vice presidential running candidate. Right. Like, basically, they're going to be running the country before the next 4 years is up. We all know this, so. You're president in waiting over here.
Hey, Klobuchar, how's your blood pressure?
All right. Well, anything besides politics? I mean, it's kind of dominated everything. And, like, even if you don't follow politics, I don't know really much of anything else that's been as dominant in the news cycle this week. I mean, this was Monday, Iowa, Tuesday, State of the Union, today, Trump's acquittal. That's 3 strikes and you're out.
Well, this is quite the start to a very long year.
I keep seeing memes that say, "Oh, I'm glad that January's done. That was the longest decade of my life."
Right.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Oh no, these last 300 years just flew by.
February is going to be great because it's going to be the shortest month. So it'll only seem like 8 years.
We're going to see if we can stretch 29 days into feeling like 20 years. Yeah. Well, I mean, to keep it light, I know you're not a sports fan, but I got to say this.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Super Bowl halftime show, they had Jennifer Lopez and Shakira, right?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So there was ass shaking.
Lost their shit.
There's ass shaking all over TV, and I was fine with it because last year they had Maroon 5. Maroon 3.
Sorry. Yeah, Maroon 5.
And Adam Levine waited one song to rip his shirt off, and then he did the rest of the halftime show running around with his shitty prison tattoos all glistened up. Like, I swear to God, he shaves more than a professional Olympic swimmer. Like, that man, his body looks like he's never even hit puberty yet. But, that was, the wine ants and the soccer moms loved that. But this was horrible. Oh, this was not family entertainment. How could my family watch these two women shake their hips for 15 minutes? And I'm like, really? Seriously, at this point? Why, if you looking at that lineup, you didn't know that asses were going to be shaking on the television.
Well,
then you're stupid. Second of all, if you know that asses are going to be shaking on the television, turn the channel for 15 fucking minutes.
Yeah.
How hard is that?
Well, I don't watch sports, and certainly not the Super Bowl. And sure, J-Lo and Shakira are nice to look at, but I'm not going to tune in just to see half-naked chicks. But I heard so much about how fucking dirty the halftime show was. I was like, all right, let's watch this. It was then appointment viewing. Like, I had my pants off. Let's go. And I'm watching. I'm like, when's am I gonna see more? Like, that was like the most PC pole dance that I've ever seen. I'm like, come on, exactly. She didn't even drop that ass down to the ground and bounce it a couple times. Like, what kind of pole dance is that?
I've seen more sexual pole dances when I was 5 on the playground and someone slid down the fire pole on the side of the fucking jungle gym. And, we were 5. We knew nothing about pole dancing. You know what I'm saying? It's just ridiculous.
I've seen more skin at the Olympics.
Oh, especially, Summer Olympics, big time.
Yeah. Or even the Winter Olympics. Even the fucking cold sports. The fucking, like, there are skimpier outfits that are worn by figure skaters than what they were wearing.
That's true. I didn't think about that. Yeah, that is true. Well, the two most ridiculous things that I heard come out of this was, this first one is, this has got to be some asshole who's just doing it for attention. Some private citizen is going to sue the NFL because he's a Christian, and he was he didn't expect to see what he saw, and it gave him evil thoughts and blah 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 blah, and so somehow he sinned, and the NFL made him sin. Basically, right. Who was that old comedian that would, the devil made me do it? That's why he's suing the NFL. The NFL made him get tingly like he's climbing the rope in gym class with their halftime show, and he had an evil thought. And I'm just like, okay, whatever, dude. The NFL's got enough money to absorb a lawsuit like that for like nothing.
This is so mean. You might as well have went straight to the source and sued J-Lo's ass.
Yeah. But now this one is funny because this just shows you how many people tune in for the Super Bowl. And more people actually tuned in for the halftime show than the actual game. And I can tell that that's a legit stat, because these are people who haven't watched probably one football game all season and don't understand that this year specifically, the NFL has been pushing for getting more Spanish speaking and Latin and Mexico and Puerto Rico and obviously Latin fans.
Yeah, untapped market.
And eventually, they've in the last 10 years, they've been having games in Mexico City. Eventually, they want to expand, just like they want to expand over to London. They've been having games in London for the last 10 years also. Mm-hmm. These are markets that they're trying to get teams set up in. They're trying to get some of that soccer money, some of that soccer fan base to pay attention to them. It makes sense that this year, considering that on every NFL highlight on social media, there would be 2 posts. There would be one in English, one in Spanish. If you're an NFL fan, you follow the NFL on social media, you saw it all year long. None of this was shocking. None of this was controversial. But, of course, people who don't pay attention to this shit tune in and go, why am I not hearing them singing American? Why am I hearing them singing Mexican?
Well, even the outrage of the sexual nature of the performance, I thought stank of racism, because we usually don't have shit to say when white girls get half naked and dance around. Well, they're just having fun. Oh, she's empowered. She's owning her sexuality.
Yeah, what happened to all
Whereas
that?
Brown people, well, these sluts are trying to take our husbands.
Well, you know what? Suck some dick every once in a while. You won't have to worry about it. What do you want me to fucking say, sweetheart? Do some squats. Get the booty in shape,
Yeah, the guys are thinking if only. Like, oh no, honey, I only have eyes for you, but if J-Lo showed up at your doorstep, you'd be like, see ya, bitch.
One of the best memes I saw was a cartoon that had a police officer and a guy in a intensive care unit, and the police officer said, "So how did this happen again?" And the guy in the intensive care unit goes, "All I said to my wife was, honey, J-Lo is the same age as you." And I'm like, that'll do it. Because the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, that woman's 53. That woman is 53.
Yeah.
Like 53-year-olds when I was a kid, like baked you cookies and wore thick ass colored pantyhose so you didn't see their varicose veins. You know what I'm saying? Like they weren't doing shit like that.
Right.
You
I
know?
mean, I thought that, I know Shakira is getting up there too. She's not that old, but I didn't think that J-Lo's performance was as tight as I thought she did a good job, but she wasn't as tight, especially when it comes to the dancing, as Shakira was. But I'm not faulting her for it. I mean, I don't know.
Well, it's just once again to me, it's like when you tuned into and it was. I thank God the internet remains undefeated because people were like, "Oh, really? So this was too much of a halftime show? You want to go back to the 1990 halftime show where they had a marching band give a salute to the city of New Orleans, a high school marching band for halftime? Is that what you want to?" And then they posted it, and they're like, "That's what you want to go back to?" And it was pretty much a resounding no.
Right.
You know,
or like what was the event that they had on The Simpsons where all the kids are like singing "Children, Children, Future, Future."
Oh shit!
Children are the future.
Yeah, no one wants to see that.
That's
shit.
what they want as a halftime show.
Well, it's
and dogs. What about dogs catching frisbees and shit?
Oh well, they got the kitten bowl on Animal Planet.
Oh, that's right.
You go over and no, wait a minute. It's the puppy bowl and the kitten halftime show. So they have dogs, little puppies nosing around a football during the game, and at halftime they have a halftime show of cats playing with toys for like 15 minutes or something like that. And I actually know this because one year when I was with the ex-wife, she's like, "Isn't this supposed to be like some sort of halftime show on the Animal Planet?" Like, yeah, you're right. And then we sat for 5 minutes and watched kittens play with toys. And we don't know why, except for we were really drunk. Seemed like the thing to do.
That's not very progressive. Let the cats play baseball. Let the cats play football. It's 2020. Can't the cats play sports?
I didn't even think about that. Yeah. But yeah, that was. I was like, well, because when I was watching it, I was thinking, it's a pretty mild performance. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. There was no ripping off clothes, exposing a nipple that you had to pause and zoom in to try to see in the first place. Like, you know what I'm saying?
It's like a Vegas show.
Exactly. It's shit you would see probably. Shit you would definitely see any time on the day or night on like MTV or VH1. And I'm talking. I'm not talking music videos. I'm talking shows like The Real World, whatever the fuck, in Real Jersey Shore. You see worse than that shit all day and night. And all those dating shows on VH1, you see half naked bitches getting into like cat fights, ripping off each other's clothes. You see worse shit than that on Jerry Springer. That's on at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, and I'm just like, really? And every time I forget that we come from Puritans, shit like this reminds me. And I'm like, God damn, we did come from a bunch of Puritans, didn't we?
Yeah. The real beef was that there was a lot of mothers in America going, great, now my son wants to fuck a Mexican.
Well, considering Mia Khalifa was the #1 porn star in the world for like 3 years, he's already wanted to outsource his dick. Trust me, okay?
Right.
Like, American pussy is in danger of being like the auto industry. Okay, pussy might be outsourced to other countries here soon. Believe me, I'm telling you. Because and I don't even, Jesus Christ, really. These soccer moms and these wine ants, that's what they're worried about. Oh my God, my daughter saw this and she's going to be sexualized. Have you heard of TikTok? Do you know what TikTok is?
Right.
Okay, I didn't know what it was.
Oh, you were asking me? I thought yes, I know what TikTok is. Yeah.
I had no idea what TikTok was until a few days ago.
Uh-huh.
And someone posted something about it. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, this sounds like, oh shit, I forget the one that was out for a while where you make like 5-second videos. It was out like maybe 5-10 years ago. Right. Vines. I'm like, yes. Oh, it sounds like Vines. Okay.
Yeah.
And I went to the website and I went to Google and I typed in TikTok and I went to the website, checked it out, and I'm like, so it's like Vines. People doing dumb shit in like very short periods of time. Okay, whatever. And then I started seeing all these articles pop up as I'm scrolling through the test or the search results saying, there's underage girls twerking and singing in songs that are not age appropriate for them on this, and they're being followed by pedophiles and grown men and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, wait a minute. So if this is true, and these like 10, 11, 12-year-old girls are being oogled by grown-ass men via this app, I think watching a 53 and 46-year-old woman shake their ass for 15 minutes at a Super Bowl halftime show probably should be way farther down the list of your concerns for your 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old daughter, seeing that. Because once again, if you're just finding out about it, your kids have known about it for a long time, which means they've probably seen everything that they're not supposed to see on it.
Yes,
so
being still concerned about what's being beamed over the airwaves as far as television and how appropriate that is in 2020, you're not paying attention at all.
No, that's an okay boomer moment.
Yeah,
that's you want to sound super time half bullshit. Okay, boomer, whatever.
Like super seriously. Time half bowl?
Yeah, half bowl.
I'm going to have a super time half bowl right now.
Shit, I wish I'd have had one. I'd have had an excuse for that coming out like that. But no, seriously, like that's what you're worried about? And how old was your kid when you gave him a smartphone? Okay, you're an idiot. Like, there's nothing you can fucking tell me that's going to convince me that you're not oblivious to reality right now. It's just not. And what I love is, well, I've got this thing that's supposed to track the apps they go on. That's the ones that you know about. That's the ones you program it to track.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, they know the technology better than you.
Yes, they do. Believe me. I figured out how to get a lot of free shit via cable by fucking with cables outside of the house that my mom had no idea. She didn't even realize we got those channels till after I moved out. And years later, she was like, after you moved out, I realized that I had HBO and I don't know how I had it because I never paid for it. And I was like, yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know. Did you ever know she had the Playboy channel too? Yeah, that was really nuts. Yeah, but whatever. Well, you got anything else?
No, I'm all set.
All right, well,
I guess it's time to wrap up.
Hopefully we should have Chris back next week.
I think so, yeah. Probably going to be alternating. He'll be every other week with us.
Yeah, this seems to be the schedule for the moment, so.
So until then, I guess you can, until next week when Chris joins us again, you can hit us up on Twitter, follow us there, follow us on Facebook. Just search Unregimented. You'll find it. What else? They can support us. They can rate us on whatever. Well, whatever pod-catching app you have has a way to rate us, and they all help. But iTunes is definitely a big one. And if you like the show a lot and want to let other people know, go on to iTunes and give us a good rating and review. It helps a lot. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
All right. Later, guys.
Unregimented. ChristopherMedia.net. ChristopherMedia.net.
If you like this show, please tell a friend. Please make sure to rate and comment on all your favorite Christopher Media shows. Please follow us on Twitter and like and share us on Facebook. You can subscribe to all ChristopherMedia.net shows for free on ChristopherMedia.net. Thank you for listening, and thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.